Let's talk about horror. The horror genre when I was younger is something that I just did not mess with at all. Cause I ain't gonna lie, I was terrified of any horror movie I watched during that time. I would get nothing but nightmares. Now memories are starting to come back to me watching these movies. Like when my mom made me watch the 1990 version of It with her, and there's this scene where like a bunch of blood comes out of a sink. Legit, that made me scared of my sink for I don't know how long, but I remember it being for a good bit. Or the time that I was scared to use the restroom because of Paranormal Activity out of all movies. Like, this shit was wild. Around 8th grade to freshman year, things started to shift. I actually started liking horror movies, and there's a few reasons why it shifted. I just became more tolerant to blood, gore, or just violence in general. When I was watching horror movies, the reason why I started liking them so much is because of the great intense feeling that a horror movie can bring out of you. The sense of uneasiness, the feeling like something is off, the dark chilling atmosphere. I just love those emotions that a horror story can provoke somebody. With me recently-ish getting into manga, I wanted to read a horror manga. Now, I already read a horror manga before, but that was a while ago, and I was just in the mood to read another one. But how did I decide to, find another horror manga to read? Did I, go on Reddit, watch YouTube recommendations for a horror manga? Nah, I decided to be different. I wanted to pick like the most random horror manga that I can read. So I was just scrolling, and that's when I ran into Blight of Man. Originally, I thought I wasn't gonna make a video on this manga because currently there's only 10 chapters that are out right now. But after the first chapter, I just have this urge to desperately talk about this manga. Even though the 10 chapters that I read from Blight of Man is very, very good, I still need to find, a horror manga to read because, it was only 10 chapters. I wanted to read something that's longer than 10 chapters, so I still need to find a solution to that problem. Now, before I introduce Blight of Man, I just want to give a light spoiler warning. I'm gonna try to talk about this manga without giving them as much spoilers as possible, but I can't guarantee that there will be no spoilers in this video. Blight of Man is a new horror manga in Shonen Jump Plus, written by Michio Maru, and the art is done by Yuki Sato. The story is about how people are getting turned into these mummy-like creatures, and we meet a kid named Senta that has the ability to see ghosts, and one day he noticed something's off with his friend Hayato. In the beginning of the story, it does a great job pulling you into this dark atmosphere and wondering like what's going on, and it ends up making you want to read further in the manga to see what's going on. With the story hooking you in, you get introduced to these two characters, Senta and Hayato. These characters is what makes Blight of Man truly a great story so far. Senta desperately trying to save his friend from a terrible situation, and that's what makes him so relatable. Him standing up and trying to save Hayato, and even after the situation that happened, he still looks out for Hayato. It's depressing to see Hayato living this very, I was gonna say poverty, but poverty might be a stretch, but a very poor lifestyle, while also dealing with I can't go in detail, but a very scarily accurate depiction of a toxic relationship between him and his mother. Everything that Hayato had to deal with in the manga so far, it makes everything very sad. And him dealing with that trauma after the fact, and learning more things about Senta's family background and things about the mummy-like creatures, I just found to be very interesting so far. The art in Blight of Man is great, especially the designs of the creatures. I just love how these mummy creatures look. With how shading is used in the manga, it makes these mummy-like creatures more terrifying and more intimidating too. It reminds me a lot of Miracle-chan, which is something I recommend you should read. When a character is horrified or scared, their facial expressions are drawn so beautifully. Now, this isn't something that I can't explain upon, but Blight of Man does a very introducing new characters. You instantly gravitate towards a character, or you find a character to be ambiguous and unknown. My point being, it's very similar to Kuma Can Communicate in the way that both stories can introduce new characters and you instantly like them because how great the writing is. If you want to read a manga that has very mysterious and intriguing lore behind it, two characters that have a very strong friendship and it's very easy to root for them, and a very good art, you should read Blight of Man. I know that When July 3rd hits, I'm gonna be chilling, laying back, grabbing a drink, I guess. I'm reading chapter 11, bruh.